All right, today we're jumping into a topic that is an absolute game changer for AI developers, function calling in Spring AI. We're going to explore how you can bust your LLM out of its box and transform it from, a passive text generator into a powerful orchestrator that can actually interact with your entire application stack. So let's get right into it.
I want you to think about it like this. Your large language model, it's like a genius that's read every book in a massive library. It knows a ton, but it's trapped in that library. There are no windows, no phone, no internet connection. It knows about history, science, and art, but it has absolutely no idea what's happening outside its four walls right this second. And that is the core problem we're going to solve.
So here's our game plan for this explainer. We'll start by talking about this whole AI in the box problem. Then we'll define exactly what function calling is and, more importantly, how it works under the hood. After that, we'll dive into a really practical use case, connect the code, and then wrap up with the big picture idea, your AI as the central orchestrator of your applications.
Okay, so let's really dig into that genius in a library idea. An LLM's knowledge, as vast as it is fundamentally static. It's basically frozen in time at the very moment its training data was compiled. So without some kind of connection to the outside world, to external tools or live data, its potential has a very hard ceiling. It can't act. It can only recall and remix the information it already has.
This right here really says it all, doesn't it? An LLM can write you a beautiful, creative, Shakespearean sonnet about a rainy day. It can pull from everything it's ever learned about poetry and weather. But ask it if you need an umbrella for your walk to lunch, and it's got nothing. It just can't access a live weather API. It has no way to perform a real action in the real world.
And this is exactly where function calling steps in. It is, quite literally, the key that unlocks that library door. It's what gives our AI a phone line, a web browser, and a whole set of tools to actually interact with the world outside of its training data. It's the bridge between that static knowledge and dynamic, real-world action. So let's get a clear definition. For us as developers, what is it? Well, function calling is the capability we give to an LLM to intelligently look at a user's request and decide, hey, do I need to phone a friend for this? That friend could be an external API, a database query, you name it. The LLM figures out which function to call, what to send it, and then, this is the crucial part, it takes the answer it gets back and weaves it into a natural, complete response. Okay, so how does this magic actually happen? Well, it's not really magic, of course. It's a very logical flow that takes what a user wants, their intent, and turns it into a real executed action. Let's break that process down.
It all happens in 4 main steps. First, the LMM analyzes the user's intent. It's figuring out if the question can be answered with what it already knows or if it needs to reach out. If it needs help, it moves to step 2, extracting the parameters. It smartly identifies which function to call and what inputs that function needs. Step 3, execution, is where we come in. Our own Spring application code receives those instructions from the AI and actually makes the call to the API or service. And finally, in step 4, the result of that call is fed back to the LMM, which then generates the final, polished, context-aware answer for the user.
Theory is great, but let's make this really concrete with a practical example from the source material. Facilities management. This is perfect because it shows how function calling can solve a pretty complex problem that requires data from totally separate systems. So here's the user's request. They want to find an active government building in a particular city. Simple enough, right? But wait, there's more. They also need to know the current weather in that city, and they need the contact details for the regional office. An LLM on its own has no hope of answering this. It needs to tap into 3 different live data sources. So, as developers, our job is to build a toolkit for the AI. The cool part is, we don't have to tell it when to use the tools. We just describe what each tool does and make it available. The AI is smart enough to figure out the rest. Let's look at the 3 tools we'd need for this use case. Tool number 1 is a leasing service. Now, in Spring AI, this can be just a simple Java bean. We give it a description in plain English, maybe with an annotation telling the AI, hey, this tool connects to a GSA database and can find federal buildings for you if you give it a city. That's it. The framework handles the rest.
Next up, our weather service. This one's critical because it provides that live, real-time data that is completely outside the LLM's knowledge base. It calls a third-party weather API. And just like before, we just define the bean, describe what it does, and Spring AI adds it to the AI's toolkit. And our third and final tool is a contact info service. Now, what's really interesting about this one is that it doesn't just call a nice, clean API. It actually goes out and scrapes a web page to find the contact info. This shows that a function can be a pretty complex operation, but from the AI's perspective, it's just another tool in its belt, ready to go.
All right, our 3 tools are in place. Now the user comes along and makes their request. Find me an active building in Anchorage and tell me the weather and who to contact. Notice how this one sentence in natural language touches on the capabilities of all 3 services we just provided. Now the AI has to figure out what to do. And here's the payoff. This is the aha moment. The AI looks at the user's request, it sees the toolkit we gave it, and it decides all on its own to call the leasing service, the weather service, and the contact info service. Our application code runs those functions, gets back all this structured JSON data, and feeds it all back to the AI, which then puts together a single, complete answer. It didn't just generate text, it orchestrated a whole multi-step data retrieval workflow.
So let's zoom out. What's the ultimate takeaway here? Function calling fundamentally changes the role of the LLM in your application. It's no longer just a component that writes nice emails or summarizes text. It becomes the central orchestrator, the brain that can intelligently delegate tasks to all of your other existing systems. So why does this matter so much to us, the developers? Well, this means we can finally move beyond making clever chatbots. We can use natural language as the trigger for really complex, multi-step workflows that plug right into our existing enterprise APIs and systems. We're building dynamic apps that act on live data. We're empowering our users to actually accomplish tasks, not just ask questions. And that brings us to the final, and I think most exciting question. Once you give your AI the ability to use any tool, to call any API, to interact with any of your systems, the possibilities just become almost limitless. It's a massive paradigm shift. So the real question I'll leave you with is, what will you build first?